I was just a homeless dairy farmer at that stage, and I hadn't achieved anything great in my life. It just wasn't for me at that time. I'm an asset builder, I'm an entrepreneur, you know. I love creating lovely places for people to live. When you interview somebody like Sir Richard, and he's so calm, so grounded, you think, wow. Are entrepreneurs born or can they be made? Was the first question. Is it genetics or environment that shapes entrepreneurs? Second question. You have to drive forward, and you have to have that empowerment and self-motivation. I think the universe tests us. You know, if it's too easy, it wouldn't be so rewarding, would it?
What is the mantra you say?
I'll always be fine.
I'll always be fine.
I'll always be fine.
The beauty of what I get to do for a living is that I get to be surprised. And that's what happened this week with a conversation with Mr. Kevin Green, who I believe is the single largest residential property holder here in the UK. I think he's worth over 100 million pounds, but that's not the point of this conversation. The point is that Kevin used to be homeless. Kevin was milking cows up until he was 37 years old. And yet he realized that it was time to make a change. And he got an opportunity to travel the world on a scholarship, and he pushed to interview Sir Richard Branson. And Sir Richard said something to him during that interview that made him want to change his life. And Kevin went on to interview Bill Gates, a notoriously impossible guy to try to get down for a conversation. I know because I've tried. And Kevin ended up stepping up his game, and he doesn't claim to be the most educated or the smartest guy in the business, but he knows what he knows very well, and he's got a great way of loving himself and figuring out what it takes to really get things done. And he's got a great ritual in the morning where I think he stands up, maybe naked, and he explains to himself that he loves himself. He screams it out. And I think we're really lacking that a lot these days. And so many of my guests actually express similar feelings about what they do. Anita Morjani comes to mind, and I think it's very crucial and something that's oftentimes forgotten, and not every entrepreneur talks about it, but Kevin does. He's also really open about some very spiritual experiences that he's had, and he even said there were different spirits in the room with us during this conversation. One is his sister who passed away when he was young, who reminds him every day that he just doesn't have that much time, and we all need to seize the moment. And the other was a man that he encountered on a mountain in Arizona that said all of the answers you already know. And just great lessons I learned from a guy I thought was going to charge in and talk to me about his millions made in residential property, but instead taught me a lot about myself and how I can look at the world in a different way. And you know, that's what London Real is all about. That's what we're trying to get to the essence when we ask you to take a little time out of your day to listen to another human being, something we just don't get the chance to these days with social media and mobile phones going off and us worrying about what we have to do to get to the next level. And people like Kevin really show me the way. So it's absolutely fantastic. I know you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And a lot of you have been asking me, Brian, what is this thing called the London Real Academy? Well, it's a secret society of the hardest core London Realers from around the world. There's over 1,000 of us, and we get together online and in person, and we push each other. We hold each other accountable, which I think is really lacking in this world today, to build better versions of ourselves, to upgrade our peer group, and to take things to the next level. Kevin reminded me that we just don't have much time, and today is the day to get things done and to just be the best version of yourself. We all want everyone to show up as the best version of themselves, and we do that online with the Academy. We have coursework, we have special digital courses, we have a social network, we have webinars, we live stream from the studio, and we have meetups right here in Shoreditch at the studio. You can meet Winston the dog, smell the leather chairs, and I'll give you a hug because I want to see what you want to do with your life, and I want to find out how I can help. And this Academy has just reinvigorated me, and I actually like it more so than having these conversations. And I put together a little video about it. Check it out.
The entrepreneurial journey, it can be a lonely road. I push myself in so many areas, but you know, you can't do it all yourself.
The thing about the Academy is, it's like, look, you have the ideas, you have the ability, you have the skill, and you have the sort of ambition for yourself. But when you have a group of people pulling you forward It's so important.
Accountability is what's missing from most of the programs or any gurus or any internet mentor that I had before.
I wanted to get some accountability. I wanted to make myself accountable to a group, to you.
The reason we started the Academy is because I felt like we were doing these amazing talks, like we'd have a Peter Sage episode or a Dan Pena episode or a Kala or someone, and you get super inspired, and then YouTube stops, and then you go back to your life and you don't make any changes. And it was just like, what? It felt like, what are we doing? If you're designing your life right, the good times are now. And in a few years, you'll look back and say, wow, that was amazing.
The thing about the Academy is it has so many different sort of layers to it. I think your web seminars are awesome. The way you broke it down and the style of your teaching is pretty awesome.
I like the feed. When I have to motivate myself, I kind of look at others struggling and getting over those struggles. So I actually follow daily the feed.
Best feature would be the sort of Facebook aspect of it, the social media aspect of it, as in creating a profile with your goals, your dreams.
Everyone's on the same vibe, and we may be at different stages in our journeys, but everyone's on the same page at the end of the day. Everyone's really trying to push themselves and building the best you. It really resonates with me.
And the fact that I'm committing a small amount of money and the fact that I'm actually trying to interact with those people means that I'm invested and means that I will keep it for the long run.
You have to be serious about yourself and what you want to achieve. And if you're serious about yourself, this is going to be such a fantastic platform.
London Real, sponsored by Bulletproof. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Kevin Green, who is the largest private sector property landlord in the UK. In 1988, you were homeless, then you became a dairy farmer, and today you have a net worth of £50 million. You are also a social entrepreneur and have been featured on Channel 4's Secret Millionaire and are actively involved with the homeless charity Shelter and the Wallets charity. In the past year, you have traveled the world, spoken alongside Sir Richard Branson, one of your mentors, Lord Alan Sugar, and Bill Clinton. Kevin, welcome to London Real.
Thank you, Brian.
It's great to have you here. You know, before we jump into your story, which is fascinating, your view on real estate, I want to know, what is the next 4 weeks of Kevin Green's life look like? I know you're on a plane going to Singapore. I know you've been speaking the last few days, but what is it really like to be Kevin Green?
It's a bit busy at the moment, Brian. I just spoke on 11 different stages in 8 different countries, and that side of things has taken over a little bit. The old voice has taken a bit of a hammering as well. Post the Singapore talk, I'm coming back with family again. Just through Christmas, I cherish the time with my kids. They're older now, but I think that's important. And I've always been like business in the beginning, and realized more and more that family are the number one. So I like spending time with my family and my pet donkeys. I've got 24 pet donkeys, so
wow,
a little bit different maybe.
Okay, and those are in Wales, you've got the donkeys?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, my grandpa is from Arizona, and he was a mule man. And we had mules, and they would pull his carts around and things like that. Yeah. Why donkeys? They're
Donkeys,
smart.
Yeah, it was a mistake really how I got the first one. I used to be a dairy farmer, so I bought this cow from a farm, and the farmer said, if you don't buy the donkey with that cow, they both pine away for each other because they're best friends. And the name of the town where I bought this cow was Bethlehem. And it was all a bit ironic, and then I go around the corner and in this old shed where the window should be, this old stone shed, there's a shaft of sunlight shining through on the back of this donkey, And it's like, I got to buy it. And unbeknown to me, that donkey was in foal. And my kids named her Victoria after the Spice Girls. And then she had a foal called Emma after the Spice Girls again. And of course, the numbers grew from there.
I never expected the donkey story. That's pretty incredible. When you go for like the next 4 weeks, are you a keynote speaker? Are you teaching your own things?
Yep.
Will you look at property as well for your portfolio?
Yes.
What's going on?
Yeah, there's three things really. I'm a keynote on 4 different stages over the next month, and I enjoy doing that. I love the buzz of that, the quick in and out for half an hour, firing people up and getting them to really reach their potential. Part of what I do is training as well. We share the steps that we do or we've done and continue to learn, and people follow in those footsteps to create businesses. I suppose everybody knows me for property. We've got 927 units that we rent out at the moment in single ownership, and that's really where that claim on the intro came from, where we are the single ownership largest person in the whole of UK, but we also got 26 other businesses, and they range from trading in metal and car parts right up to coaching people on marriage guidance counselling. So it's quite an interesting splatter of things that we do really. So I'll be very busy on all that.
Okay, now the coaching makes sense because you've gone through these things yourself. But are the other businesses real estate related, or you just said not all of them?
No,
Okay.
I would say 90% are not real estate. There's only 3 big ones that are real estate connected. And I think it's good, on the business side of things, to have your hat in 2 different stables. One in an asset building business like real estate, and something which is more of a service business as well. And that's what we've always tried to get the equilibrium in place, to get the balance, and it's a bit of fun doing both as well.
Do you think, and I want to get into this more later, but do you think good business, you've said before that good energy creates good business, and do you think, you're diversified across lots of different sectors, so it's not like I know residential real estate well and I'm going to teach you this. Is it really a mindset? Is it really about getting your brain to another level that really allows you to achieve success?
I think it's more getting your heart in gear than your brain. I've come to learn that the head sends you all sorts of places. You get tons of thoughts, tons of crazy ideas. And if you follow your head in thinking, it's a bit like a stick in plaster. It probably doesn't last too long, that idea. But if you come from in here, your heart and guts and soul, where the true feeling is for something, that's what I followed through to get the success. Your heart never lies, and I come from heart first and send that to the head, and then it tells the head what to do rather than the other way around.
How do you get a direct line to your heart? Because that's a tricky thing, and some people do it through meditation, some people do it through training and hard exercise, some people do it through psychedelics, but it's very hard to get that direct line to your heart, especially in today's world, in the Twitter sphere, in the internet sphere. How do you do that?
Yeah, I think initially it was really difficult to identify it. And I met a lady called Sandy, who's a soul clearer, and she made me very aware of a few things about energy and spirit. And that opened a whole new set of doors for me in realizing that we've got the answers inside us, I think sometimes it takes somebody to knock on your door and say, look, there's this alternative for you. It's the same as what you guys do here. And maybe make you aware of some things for those possibilities. And that was the beginning for me. It made me realize that, I can do these things. The answers are inside me. And I was lucky enough as well to win a scholarship to interview high achievers in 1999. And I interviewed Sir Richard Branson, and Bill Gates, and a few other people. And what I realized was they're quite normal people, before I put them on a pedestal. And I was just a homeless, ex-homeless dairy farmer at that stage, and I hadn't achieved anything great in my life. And yet I'm interviewing these big high achievers, and I'm thinking, wow, actually they're not that different to me. So there's 2 things really which made me open my heart. One was realizing that, any one of us can do what these guys are doing. It's just they pushed the button and got off their backside, basically. And all the time through the scholarship, they kept relating to feelings and passion and energy. And I heard it so many times that I started waking up to that, Brian.
Is that something Sir Richard Branson talks a lot about when you're with him?
Heck of a lot.
So he's listening to that heart feeling in him and making
Yeah.
decisions based on that.
Yeah, he makes decisions based on feelings. And when I first started business, I always used to imagine that Richard was next to me and imagine what he would say about something, you know, because he's coming from that feeling. And it's almost like he was there. It was a great help to me, you know. And I started taking that on board and realizing what my own passions were in life. And really all the businesses I do and all the things I do, I'm really busy. I don't have to be, but I choose to be. You know, all those things come from here. They come from the passion inside, the will and want, even doing this, you know. I love what you guys do. And when you said to come here, I was like, oh, that feels right. Let's just do it. I go on instinct as well, you know.
That's fascinating. No, thank you for that. You said that when you went on this scholarship and you went around the world and you interviewed people, you came back with kind of 4 themes that you learned about these successful people. You hadn't yet put them into practice yourself, but you saw them. I was wondering if you could tell me what those are.
Yeah, for sure. I went with a pretty open mind. And really, just if I go back slightly, the reason for that was I met a guy called Roger Lovell. And Roger Lovell is based in Oxford. And he was the personal advisor to Margaret Thatcher, you know, and love her or hate her, you know, he was behind a lot of her success. And he got me to quantify the study in a list of questions. And I think anybody that wants to do this, I love, you know, the University of Life and Travel, they should have a set of pro forma questions so they can get measurement into their study. And these questions led to the 4 main outcome answers. You know, are entrepreneurs born or can they be made was the first question. You know, people are like, oh, okay. Is it genetics or environment that shapes entrepreneurs? Second question. You know, so really out of the culmination of these type of questions, then I was getting some common answers and common results. And what I can tell you is to put it in one, because I like making things short and simple, to put it in one context, self-awareness, knowing ourselves, what we're good at, what we're bad at, what we enjoy doing, what we don't enjoy. Self-awareness is the number 1 master key to success. That's by far the biggest of the 4 key points.
Fascinating, because most people are thinking it's the product, it's the idea, it's the financing, it's the connections. No, self-awareness.
It's self-awareness.
Okay.
I don't care what anybody does. If they do what they're destined to do in their heart, guts and soul, you know, that's their thing. They're in the flow. We've all heard that term. We try and chase money, money will run away from us. You know, I tried it in the early days. I tried multi-level marketing because I wanted to make money. I wanted to get with dairy farming, you know. It wasn't for me. It didn't feel right. And looking back, I should never really have done that. But you learn things perhaps you shouldn't do. Nothing wrong with multi-level marketing. It just wasn't for me at that time, you know. I'm an asset builder. I'm a control freak. I'm an entrepreneur, you know. I've come to realize what my strengths and weaknesses are. And control can be a strength and a weakness. But what I like in business is owning the business rather than working for somebody else. It took me a while to realize that, you know.
Wow. So that's the first one, self-awareness. What were some of the others?
Okay. The second one is attitude. You know, your attitude determines everything. You heard the saying, your attitude is your altitude in life. And I think if you respect other people through that attitude, it goes a long way. Even if you disagree with them, everybody's got a right to do what they do. And I've met some interesting people. I'm 52 now, and you know, I've kind of arguably over halfway through my life, and I'm making the most of it, you know, Brian. And some people have gone the wrong path, as some see it, but there's a reason for that in the background. You know, I work a lot with the Prince's Trust, helping the disadvantaged young people to set up businesses. And you hear of their backstories where they've been sexually abused by the stepfather or something terrible like that. And that's what sent them off the rails, you know. So I believe the attitude is that everybody deserves a chance, you know, and let them prove otherwise. Once somebody is doing me a disservice, mind you, you know, and they're intentionally trying to pull the wool over your eyes, I do look at that in a sad way as well. And I don't tolerate that. I just move on. I give people a chance or two, and then I move on. So I believe your attitude, the way that you deal with life, and in particular, life's all about people. The way you deal with people is important.
Okay, and self-belief comes in that as well?
Yeah, I think self-belief's a separate part of it, really.
Okay.
Self-belief and confidence would be another one of the key points, the key 4 points. And self-belief and confidence has to be built. I was an introvert, still am. I was the shyest person in school. And, you know, you often find that, we had this discussion privately earlier on.
A lot of our guests are introverts. I'm an introvert. People don't believe that.
Yeah, and people, you know, when I'm on stage, I go mad, crazy. I do things like the wealth dance and empowerment, and people think, oh, this guy's really out there. I'm not, you know. I'm not the person who's at the front of the crowd, normally. I'm the person who stands behind and watches everybody else and then determines where to go. I'm like the pussycat, you know, waiting and checking first and then going. And I've always been that way. And I think, you know, it's a natural trait. There's nothing wrong with it. But it can hold us back if we hold things in too much. You know, you've heard the term, let your light shine. And what the speaking has done for me, and I never intended to be speaking originally, is let my light shine and share some ideas with other people. You know, obviously you're going to get the haters, the people that don't like it, because it puts pressure on the people that want to change but don't know how. But then you've got the people that pick up on it and they absolutely love it and run with it. I think you've got to shout your message out to the world, whatever it might be.
Right. So it was self-awareness, self-belief, attitude. What were a couple of the other ones you saw?
Okay. I think keeping grounded.
Okay.
Grounded was something which came through time and time again. If we take Sir Richard, a classic example, he's managed to keep his feet on the ground and really look, like he said to me, always become the observer. He's mentored me a lot, Richard, and he said always step back from business and look at the people and the structure. Put yourself up in a helicopter, if you like, and imagine yourself sitting there looking down on your life and your business. You know, what you need to do next, what you need to tweak, what you need to change, because we're always continually improving. You know, in this life, we've only got one chance and we've got to make the best of it. And I think some people get it wrong. They get ego and they get, you know, detached from Mother Earth, if you like, and everything's fantastic. Then they hit the drugs and everything else, and then it all goes to pot. You see, success can be a terrible thing for some people.
Yeah, I'm sure
because they're not grounded.
I'm sure you mix with people that are, you know, successful like you, and then some people are grounded and can handle it, and some people I'm sure you don't want to have lunch with.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting and a very, very true point. I often say to myself, if I'm going to business with somebody, would I like to have a drink with that person tonight? And if the answer is no, the gut feel is no, you know, I certainly won't set up a joint venture. And it is, we resonate to certain people, don't we?
Yeah, we used to have a test when I worked on Wall Street when I first got out of college, and I went there, and we used to interview people coming in to work in the investment bank. And they'd be like, oh, do you think of that guy? Yeah, I think he's good. Would you sit next to him? Yeah. So we had this big trading desk. Every day you got to come in and be next to him. I don't know. Well, that's your answer. Yeah. And it's a good point. Would you have a drink with them tonight? And that means, well, do you like them is what that kind of means, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And if you don't, stay away.
I think it's important to mix with people that you like in all sectors. There's got to be times where you've got to put up with a certain donut, let's call it, who, you know, is the crazy person who really gets under your skin or you don't like for some reason. But there's other people that do like that person, you know. It's important for us to know what we want and mix with the people that we want to mix with at the end of the day, and do business with the people we want to do business with, and let everybody else do their own thing, you know. We can't be all things and all sizes to all people. That's what I've learned.
A few more nuggets of gold from your tour of the world interviewing people. Anything else stick out? I mean, I heard you say zest for life is important and persistence. Are those some of the others?
Yeah, I mean, they go together really. Zest for life and persistence. When you get up in the morning, you know, you decide what you want to do that day, and the decisions are down to us. And I do something crazy when I get up in the morning. I'm usually naked, but I don't want people to picture that too much.
You sleep naked?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is that a Welsh thing? Or is that a you thing?
I think it's the only natural way to do it.
Okay.
Unless you're on a plane, of course, it's a bit different there, or in public areas. But coming back to when I get up in the morning, you know, I just shout 3 big yeses, you know, while I'm thrusting my right hand in the air. And you might think it's a bit crazy or a bit mechanic, but I'm really happy to be alive. You know, my sister didn't have that choice. Her life was taken away at a young age. And we've got to make the most of those seconds that we've got in every day. We've all got the same time. So I get up in the morning and I go, yes. And I don't get ill. You know, I'm a bit knackered at the moment because I've had a really heavy tour. But I know I'm fine, and I know I'll always be fine. That's my mantra. So I purposefully do something crazy first thing in the morning. And I teach people sometimes that you can do that too. Get up in the morning and just, you know, it's called an anchor. I learned this from Anthony Robbins, you know, the big life coach.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And that bit of it really works for me, making that decision. And when I go on stage, you know, just before I go on, I'll do something crazy like that to get my energy up. Because if your energy is up, you know, everybody else is happy and their energy comes up too. And that happens in life.
Is the wealth dance like that as well? Where you're
Yeah.
doing some physical stuff. Can you just give me a quick insight what the wealth dance is like?
The wealth dance is something really a little bit crazy. It involves some bunny hops, some press ups, some star jumps.
Okay.
And the idea came from the film The Full Monty.
Oh yeah.
Although we don't do any stripping, obviously. You know, they're standing in the dole queue waiting for the dole, and they start then shuffling their bums, you know. That's the start of the wealth dance. And I suppose I've been on my own in certain locations around the world waiting to go on stages and had this me time, you know, where you think about, what am I going to do? Oh, let's think about doing a wealth dance, you know, and put all these moves together. I enjoy dancing anyway. And sometimes I just hit the stage and do the wealth dance, you know, it depends on the audience. And sometimes people will join me, people that's done it before. And they go, you know, why is a multimillionaire doing that? We don't see that very often. Well, why not, you know?
I love it. It's kind of like a wealth haka, right?
Yeah,
That's probably
it
what
is.
it's like. We had a guest on named Elliot Hulse here a few months ago, and he's a fascinating American from Florida, and he has something that he calls active meditation, but it includes him screaming out every emotion he has, breathing heavy, grounding himself in the ground, and it looks a lot like a haka crossed with some other, you know, Native American dance, and it's amazing the energy you have trapped in you, and it's amazing what you can get through physical expression. But in England and in the UK, maybe Wales, we're kind of encouraged not to do that to a certain extent.
Oh, for sure.
So it can be very powering, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be careful what stage I do that on. If I do that in the Excel Centre in London, they think, uh-oh, you know, this bloke's barking, he's lost his marbles. It doesn't appeal to some people. You have to select your audiences and do it, you know, where you know it's going to work. Certain crowds, like your crowd, would be fine, I'm sure, you know, and certain business crowds and a group of bankers, you know, they don't want to do it. You know what I mean? They've never done it before. So you know, you have to be a little bit selective on the way, when you're speaking, the way that you approach the audience, suit that audience and hit their buttons, you know.
Right. Let me finish up with persistence and zest for life.
Yeah.
You were saying you do that in the morning. How does that then lead on to persistence and zest?
I think it helps the ingredient, the base, you know, when you're baking a cake, you've got the ingredients there. And then when you go forward, you've always got to look back at that mantra, I'll always be fine. Whatever happens, because, you know, excuse us the term, shit comes. It's going to come. And if you're going to hit stuff hard and grow big and successful, you've got to deal with that part of it as well. It's not all good and fantastic. Becoming a multimillionaire is not easy, you know. So it's having the persistence to break through that when somebody doesn't deliver on time, and it's annoying when somebody hasn't done what they said they're going to do. You know, that really is annoying, isn't it? And you've got to say, right, okay, now how do we solve that? What are we going to do and make this happen? When somebody says no, no, no to you, and I was going for interviews on the scholarship, nobody knew who I was. I'm just a homeless dairy farmer who wants to interview these high and big names. And I was persistent, I was tenacious, I kept looking at different ways to get that interview with Bill Gates, a long backstory to that one, but I got it, you know, and I believe that's the ingredient for success. You must do whatever it takes. And that was damn hard as well. A couple of nights with no sleep to get that one, you know? So, and that's followed through into what I do in business as well.
And that's the persistence, and you think that and zest for life go hand in hand. Never heard that, but it makes sense.
I believe they do. I believe they're totally linked. And I suppose, you know, some people have asked, why have you got this? Why have I particularly got it? And that's easily answered. It's because of the death of my sister. It made me wake up, you know.
She was 22, you were 20 at the time?
I was 22, she was 20.
She was 20, same birthday you have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happened, or how did it make you feel?
Well, it made me appreciate what I've got, you know, because her life, she was fine. And she was always the academically clever one. You know, I'm stupid academically. And I've got dyslexia.
So you say.
Yeah, I've got dyslexia.
Okay.
I am. Academia and me don't really get on. But intelligence, I realize I'm intelligent enough to know that, you know, if I pay £2 or $2 for something and I sell it for $4 or £4, I make gross profit of $2. You know, I look at things simply. But what that death of my sister did, it made me realize, hang on, you know, I've got a choice to do every second of my day the way that I want to do it. And if I don't make the most of that, you know, I'm a fool to myself, because she didn't have those choices. Those were taken away. And you mentioned a couple of charities in the beginning. I'm an ambassador to Make-A-Wish Foundation UK, and I do a lot of work with Make-A-Wish because they're granting magical wishes to children with life-threatening illness. Those children haven't got those choices either, you know, and we're fools to ourselves if we don't make the most of every second we've got. If we moan and complain about stuff, you know, we're just going to get negative energy coming back, because I'm a strong believer whatever you put out in this world comes straight back at you.
Yeah, no, very much so. And so that all leads into kind of that whole zest for life.
Yeah.
And that ties into everything you learned when you interviewed those people.
Yeah, I mean, I got totally invigorated by, I mean, when you interview somebody like Sir Richard, and he's so calm, so grounded, and he gives you those one-liners, you think, wow, yeah, that is absolutely bang on it, you know. And something Richard said to me, and that's something I'll share with all the viewers here, if you recognize qualities in another person that you admire, that's who you are. Those qualities must be already in you for you to have seen them in that person. And I was told that by Richard, and I've never forgotten that.
That's a fascinating point, and I've heard you make that on stage as well. And if you notice, oh, that person is grounded, that person is intelligent, that person is, you know, puts out good energy in the world, then you probably have those inside you. Maybe they're down there somewhere deep, but you obviously are resonating with those feelings, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think people put themselves down too quickly. Oh, we can't do that, we won't do that, we mustn't do that. You know, at the end of the day, you can do anything that you want to do, but it's what's right for you. You know, you don't have to be a multi-millionaire. It's just, you know, that's just happened for me. I wanted to be a millionaire. It's just gone quite well, you know. I always wanted to be a millionaire from a young age. I told my careers advisor that. And his answer to me was, don't set your sights too high so that you won't be disappointed. You know, this was the advisor in school. But I went back and found him some years later, and I said, look, Mr. Wilson, look what I've done. And he said, yeah, you got lucky. You know? So it teaches you a few things about life.
And that mantra you have is everything will be okay. No, what is the mantra you say?
I'll always be fine.
I'll always be fine.
I'll always be fine.
Okay.
It's me that it matters. Not everything else doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay. If you're fine, that means your family is fine. You know, charity begins at home. You know, there's something I've learned, Brian. I always used to help other people first. You've got to help yourself first, because if you get yourself in the right place, you can help so many more people.
Yeah, I always have this saying to someone: everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, then it's not yet the end. Yeah, and it's just, you know, it's just a way when something really crazy is happening, you know, everything is going to be fine. If you're in the middle of it, you know, just continue.
Yeah, you know, crash through it, get that persistence, keep grounded, because it will always be fine. You know, and when you know that, when you can see that light at the end of the tunnel, no matter what's happening, and I'm not going to go through examples, but there's tons and tons of stuff that happens in my life, and, you know, people don't see that. They only see the success, or if there's one big failure, they want to focus on that, you know. I don't see what goes into all of the mechanics to making all that happen. And every entrepreneur works damn hard, I can tell you.
Yeah, want to fill a little bit of your backstory in. You know, you have an incredible backstory. You were homeless at one point.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how that happened, and then how you made the transition to a dairy farmer.
Okay. Well, my grandfather and my father were dairy farmers, so I was expected to follow suit, which I duly did. I came to the home farm after school. I left school early with only 4 O-levels, all the practical subjects, failed O-level maths, O-level English, much to the disgust of my mother. And I came to work on the home farm. And then I attended agricultural college in Llandilo in South Wales, because my father said, you know, there's the farm, you know, you've got a free hand really as to the ideas, go away to college and, you know, bring these ideas back, and you can do the farming, and I'll continue with a business which I'm setting up, which was selling steel frame buildings. You know, so he was a small-time entrepreneur himself. And I thought, fantastic, Dad, thank you very much for the opportunity. What I didn't realize, in my heart and guts and soul, farming wasn't for me, you know, and I know that now. And, you know, going back to that time, I wanted to please my father, please the family, went to college, came back with the ideas. I went, well, hey, you know, we've got to increase the cow numbers from 40 to 400. We're going to up the stocking rate. We're going to use these new ideas of New Zealand grazing system. He went, no, son. You do it my way or it's the highway, basically. I was like, huh? You know, it was a big clash. And over the months then, we really didn't see eye to eye. And I love my father to bits, so we're very close now. But it led to us physically having blows. And I ran away from home without any plan, without any money. All I had was a Mark II Ford Escort that I'd built. You know, I love my cars. And I ended up having to sell that as well to pay for food. I went to the West Country because a lot of my family are around there, but I was too proud to actually go to the relatives and ask for somewhere to stay. You know, I made out I was fine, I was okay, but I was actually sleeping on the streets, and I ran out of money. And this was by July time in 1988.
How old were you?
And I was 19 at that time. And I remember then going into the transport cafes and you know, begging the lorry drivers, basically. I was saying, are you going to leave those chips? Because, you know, I've really run out of money. I had a bit of a problem and I've had to go away from it. They were buying me meals, you know. I'll never forget that. And that's how I survived, really, was by begging and borrowing a little bit over those weeks. And I thought, well, I got to snap out of this, you know. This is ridiculous. I'm worth more than this. And I'm sleeping under the railway arches in Yeovil, you know, and sleeping next to the other people who are down and outs, really, and speaking with them and understanding why they're in that position. And then I applied for this job to be a farm manager because it's the only thing I knew how to do. And I read the John Nick's book of farm management, and I found that difficult because I'm dyslexic. So I kind of done all this research under the railway bridge and went for this interview, and I got this job as a farm manager. And I don't really know the first thing about managing a farm properly, you know. So I got friendly with a guy down the road called Nick from another farm, Cuddistock Farm, who's a manager there, and he guided me. And the boss to this day, I'm still, well, you might if he sees this, but he didn't know that I didn't know everything. I just learned it as I went along. And I ended up then getting involved in 3 farms with that person, Mr. Lawrence of Trail Farm Dairies in Longburton. And I was doing really well. And then as I was coming up to the age of 21, away from home, I was very close to my mother, not so close to my father. We still hadn't built that bridge. But I was doing all the things really that I could have done on the home farm on somebody else's farms and making it very successful. But I still didn't, farming wasn't for me, you know. And I remember I was in the milking shed one day and the cow behind me coughed and pooped at the same time as she lifted her tail. And all this cow shit come all over me, you know, as I was putting the milking units on another one, because I used to physically help as well. And that was a turning point in my life where I said, I really don't want to do this anymore, you know.
Because it's in your ear and you can't stop milking, so you really have to be with that situation.
I had to, you know, not drop those units because the muck might have gone into the milk, you know, and it could contaminate the whole tank. So I had to put up with it, and it hit me, and it was warm. That was a plus side, you know, but it stunk. But then the second stage of that, it started running down my neck, and it went cold, you know. And I remember it like yesterday. The smell and the feeling, you know, was that was a trigger point for me where I decided to get out of farming, which was culminated really with the death of my sister, who then died suddenly through lupus, as a cancer, well, leukemia-related disease, where the white blood cells, which are supposed to heal you, actually work against your body. And she went very quickly. And that was a big wake-up for me. I formed allegiance with Dad. I said, look, you know, I'm really sorry about this. And he came to halfway ground as well and said he'd been too stubborn, you know. He said, come and manage the home dairy farm. And that was a real dilemma for me because I didn't want to do it. I wanted to get out of farming. But because of the family commitment, I went to the home farm and I took those cows up, the cow numbers up to 460. And then I got married, met a beautiful lady, got married, and everything was fine-ish, but I had this will and want to get out and do something else, you know. It was inside me for a number of years before I actually then pushed the button at the age of 37 and won a scholarship and started, that afforded me the vehicle then to have a look at other things, you know.
Right. You said once that if the pain of where you're at is not great enough, you're not going to make the change.
Yeah.
I guess that's that incident with the cow and the cough.
That was it. That was the one, Brian, you know.
Okay.
And that's certainly true. A lot of people ask me today, okay, I want to be a millionaire or multi-millionaire. How do I do it? And I say, well, read these couple of books, you know, and then come back to me and I'll ask you some questions. Do you know only about 5% of the people come back after having read the books? People are too lazy. It's too flippant and easy to say, I want to be doing this. You've got to get off your backside and get some structure and start doing it, you know. And that's the problem. People are too lazy. They won't commit. They haven't got the persistence. They haven't got the 4 points that we spoke of already. Or they've got them, but they don't want to follow them through.
And they haven't hit rock bottom. Do you need to hit a rock bottom or a certain point where you're like, okay, I'm going to change my game up?
I think myself, I've had huge pain in my life. There's 2 big pains, the fallout with my father and the death of my sister. And I think it's important, yeah. I'm not saying you've got to have pain to become an entrepreneur, but certainly in my case, I went through that and it made me appreciate, you know, really what I've got and who I am. And from there, I really, you know, even today, I sleep only 3 or 4 hours a night. I make the most of everything, every second of the day in doing stuff, you know, stuff that I love doing.
And then you got the scholarship and you were allowed to travel the world. You ended up interviewing, meeting Sir Richard Branson.
Yeah.
You interviewed Bill Gates. You know, you mentioned interviewing earlier, And I'm very fortunate. I get to speak with some amazing people, including yourself. And about a year ago, I started thinking to myself, what's different about these people? Because you meet them, a lot of times they're a bit introverted. They seem pretty normal. They drink coffee like normal people. They use the loo. And I started getting an idea, and I'm curious what you think of this, is that they have the things that you mentioned too, but a lot of times these people are willing to go to uncomfortable places to get where they are. Yeah. And repeatedly, whether it's Eddie Izzard here, who can now sell out 30 days straight in London. How did he get there? Well, he used to be a street performer in Covent Garden, and I've seen a lot of those guys. So why did he get to where he is? It's because he kept pushing himself to go to where fear was, uncomfortableness, and then he kept improving on the back of that. And that's the only difference between someone who isn't sitting there. I wonder what you think of that first, because you interviewed people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And I suppose I'm lucky, I can speak from my own experience. And it's very uncomfortable at times when you go down those roads where you're totally alone because your family's not supporting you. In my case, they wanted me to continue farming because that was what was safe. I was pretty good at it.
It's quite a career change.
Yeah, but when you're doing something and you're fairly successful at it, but you don't look forward to getting up in the morning and doing it, it's time to change, And for me, like I absolutely love what I do now, and I choose what I do, including the speaking. I don't have to do it, but I absolutely love it, and that really is the key. Is taking that change first of all, and committing yourself to it. That I think that the problem or the fault of a lot of people is they go on too much rah-rah courses, and they have what's called shelf development. You've got to feel the pain of doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You've got to. When you push the button, you've got to actually do something and have an action plan. And that's not easy, especially if you're coming from an employed background, to take that lead and to take your backside into that position, especially when you've got family commitments, responsibilities, exactly the same as I have. I have 3 beautiful children, they're all grown up now, and very proud of where they are today. But you really have to take self-control and direct yourself into that. And yes, it's painful sometimes because the biggest pain is the torture that you're putting on yourself, the doubt, thinking, if I fail on this, I could actually stuff the family's future, and that's the thing you have to break through. And I suppose my mantra, I've always had the mantra of, I'll always be fine. And that I know that, whatever happens in the medium term, if I go homeless again, it doesn't matter, I've got my health. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great mantra.
And it's something where it's the total opposite of moaning and complaining about government or the neighbours or your friends or somebody else, You have to take responsibility for your own actions with the pain that comes with that as well, because through change, pain will come for sure. And so to answer your question in a nutshell, yes, I do think you've got to have pain to become successful.
Yeah, you talk about self-development. In my TED Talk, I said, research is procrastination in disguise. And a lot of times it's going to that uncomfortable place. And a lot of people just don't want to do that because it's the scary thing. And so you watch a course and it's entertaining and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's this concept called resistance. There's an author named Stephen Pressfield. He's got a book called The War of Art. Right. And he said, whenever you go to do something, resistance shows up. I'm sure you're familiar with this concept where you want to do a deal and then that's the one point where a family member says, I have a crisis. Yeah. But that's the one point where you actually stub your toe or you do something and there's all these things keeping you from doing it. Yeah. And you have to be like, no. We're going to push through those. It's just normal. It's just natural when you're actually going to get something done, a little pain, a little this, and then...
Yeah, I think the universe tests us as well. If it's too easy, it wouldn't be so rewarding, would it? Yeah. So at the end of the day, there's nothing that's really, really easy. There's always a glitch somewhere. And, I quite often say, if it's not broken, break it. Make it interesting, Because it is, if we've got challenges on a daily basis, it keeps us sharp, It keeps the old cogs ticking. And I think if you get too complacent and too comfortable, then that's when you die.
To watch the rest of this fascinating interview, click on the link below and go to londonrealacademy.com. There you can sign in with your social media, log in and watch the rest of the episode for free, along with all of our episodes on London Real, my webinars, and all of our premium content, all located over at londonrealacademy.com. So click on the link below, you'll be directed there and you can watch the rest of this fascinating interview, and I'll see you there.
To speak on a stage. And when I won the Nuffield Scholarship, I knew I had to speak for 20 minutes in front of the leaders of the farming